For another purpose, to take some funny pictures of my dolls, I bought some cheap horses and decided to make them into carousel horses. They are a little bit smaller in scale than a normal doll would be, and I thought that is quite what a carousel horse would be too. The most horses I saw on a carousel were more children-sized, so going with some smaller smaller horses was something I thought could work quite well. And the first step was to get rid of the flocking they had to give them the appearance of fur. And under that I found quite nice details on the very, very thin plastic. And thought, okay, so I don't have to sculpt any texture for fur, so that's a plus. And then I made a lovely noise by scraping off the edges they have. Because there were 3 horses in the package, I was glad enough to have some options. And I decided to make the white one a unicorn, just because at this moment I wasn't thinking about making a complete carousel out of them. Maybe I will. I bought 3 new horses for this purpose, to have at least 4 carousel horses and then 2 extras. One obviously the unicorn I made, and another I don't know at the moment. So if you would like to see a carousel project, just let me know, then I will do it. Otherwise I will do it off camera. So the first step was deciding on the saddles, if I would like to keep them or not, and I decided yes. And then with a soldering iron melting some holes into them to get some skewers into them, so that we have this whole carousel horse optic wipe thing. And then I started sculpting. Because it sticks quite well to the plastic, I decided to go with epoxy sculpt and mixed the 2 equal parts together. You can use just some air dry clay, but there you have to glue it on later, and yeah, the epoxy clay sticks on its own, so I used that. And yeah, I mainly rolled out snakes of clay and just put them where I wanted them. In this case, at the back of the horse, to have kind of a piece of fabric draped around the butt of the horse. And I did the same for the front. And yeah, for doing the hair, I went with nearly the same process, mainly making snakes of clay, putting them where they should be, and then smoothing them out with some water or texture them with every tool I had available. I do like to use sculpting tools, but I also like to use stuff that I have laying around, like a wooden skewer or a needle or... And I tried to make every horse a bit different, so this black one, the first one I made, has quite a lot of not quite a lot of details. That wasn't what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is it has a straight tail in the end and quite some heavy hair in the main part, and I made some details of fur at the hooves. For the other ones, I made some different choices. For the more cream colored one, which you will see in the end, it has a shorter mane that is more flowy, and the unicorn obviously had to have a long, luscious mane with some flowers in it. And yeah, basically you can just do what you feel in the moment when sculpting something like that. And though at this point I already knew I wanted to make a complete carousel, I thought, let's give every horse a bit of a different look. Depending on temperature and stuff like that, the epoxy sculpt cures normally in around 6 to 8 hours, but I prefer to leave it overnight or for complete 24 hours, just to be sure that everything is well cured. And I cannot even be bothered to sand anything because I'm lazy AF. And yeah, with that the sculpting part was done, and I was finally able to take a look at the 3 versions that I had created. My brother entered the room while I was working on the unicorn and had something lovely to say, and it was exactly that, a unicorn. I thought that it was quite funny. So after everything was dried, I took out the gesso and gessoed the heck out of them, just to have a plain surface to work on and not be too distracted by the already existing colors. So yeah, a thick coat of gesso was the right choice in my opinion. And after that was dried, it was time for the most annoying part of all of this, which is the coloring. I know a lot of people find coloring something relaxing and calming, but most of the time I think it's annoying and yeah. If I have to paint something completely like the horses, there is a lot of room for mistakes, because it takes so long and there are so many details that you have to consider. And so I started with the main prominent features that had to be colored the darkest and had the potential to make me mess up the most, because of not being completely into painting so many tiny details. Gosh, repainting a doll is far more my thing as repainting a horse. Yeah, I start with the details that can be messed up the most, because when I paint the whole body horse body, I can cover up the mistakes I made. So if you are like me and are quite messy and can't be or are not able to draw details very well without contaminating everything else, I recommend doing it like this. First the detailed area, and then just slap on the base color afterwards. When I will turn this whole thing into a carousel, I think I want to make it so that I have 4 different horses, one in white, one in cream, one in brown and one in black, and that each horse has one color to them. Like the black horse now has green details, the cream colored one has red details, so on and so on. That was why I already just used one color on every horse, or one accent color that was a little bit brighter than the base colors I used. To get the colors to be more or less opaque, I had to use, I think, 2, sometimes 3 layers for each horse. The red was a bit tricky. I needed 3 layers there. The black was done in 1 coat. Yeah, basically I had to go over some areas again and again, and in the end I noticed I still missed some little spots, but I'm fine with it. I wanted an optic that is more or less weathered and old, and yeah, like a horse carousel that has seen stuff, and I think I achieved this quite well. Speaking of weathered, then after everything was dried, it was time to use a wash on them, and the wash was basically created by having watered down black acrylic paint mixed with some dish soap, and I have this mixture on a shelf, so it is pre-made for or I pre-made it. It was a little bit dark, but I think I like it in the end. And what this wash does, it sinks into every nook, every little detail, and yeah, creates more depth and also a little bit of a used look, I think, which I really like. I admit it is a bit dark. Maybe it would have been better to use more of a brown wash than a black one, but I'm fine with how it looks. After this part, I took out some white and black colors and just dry brushed everything, and with that I think everything came together quite nice. I used some of the base color for the cream colored horse as well, but that didn't do much, so I switched to white and black mainly to have some highlights in it and make it look even more finished and 3D. And to really finish these horses off, I just drowned them in some varnish. For the 2 horses that will be in the carousel, if I really make it one day, I used a matte varnish to have not that much of a glossy surface. For the unicorn, I used a glossy varnish, and not only that, I mixed some shimmering pigments into it, that it has a far more magical feel to it, and yeah, I really liked the result. It has a very nice sheen, and so every one of them is unique and every one of them is quite nice. I really like the results of these horses, especially when you compare how they look now with how I bought them. I think I really improved on them. If you like to, let me know what you think about them in the comments below. And if you want to see the carousel project thing. And yeah, have a nice time. And until next time, bye.